I'm Neil Dubord, Chief of the Delta Police Department. This week on our show...
All I ever wanted to be is a cop. And I've lost it now because this cancer's taken it away from me.
Bend, don't break. This is a Delta Police podcast.
Hear more about how police officers strengthen their resiliency through the power of story.
Well, good day, everyone. I have been looking forward to this day for a long, long time, and I've got a real, true undercover officer here sitting across from me here, and this is an amazing story, and even more amazing is the level of resilience that we have in relation to this story that you're going to share with us today, Chopper. Just before we get into the story, though, I want to bring and thank our podcast listeners for something that's happened here. I was speaking to a lady by the name of Carolyn Sinclair, and she's the manager for the Provincial Overdose Response Team and very active in mental health for first responders. And Carolyn was over in Spain, and she was teaching a course around emergency planning and mass disaster for 24 students from 7 different countries. Most of these students were police and military. And one of the students came up to her, and this student's name was Michael, and he was born in Northern Ireland and serves for the Garda Police in Northern Ireland. And he said, well, you know what, I listened to a podcast from Canada. And Carolyn asked a little bit more about that. And he is a listener for the Bend, Don't Break podcast and comes from Ireland. And he said, I could never really talk about mental health in my organization. There's a stigma around mental health. But he said something that I thought was extremely valuable. And we're so very proud of all the people that listen to Bend, Don't Break. And he said this: if you don't feel safe to talk about it, at the very least, you can listen. And that's what he does. He listens to the Bend, Don't Break podcast, and he's found it to be extremely helpful for him in dealing with some of his challenges that he has, even though that he can't talk openly about it amongst many of his police officer friends. Okay. So it's an amazing opportunity for us to be able to share a message with people across the globe and first responders. And this message that we have today here, Ryan or Chopper, is a real good one. So I have here an Abbotsford police officer, and I'm already a little bit choked up on this one. So, who goes by the nickname of Chopper. Yeah. And Chopper, you started about how many years ago now in policing?
2001. So okay. I'm coming up on 19 years now.
Absolutely. And you started your career in the Vancouver Police Department and transferred over to Abbotsford Police Department in 2010. Yeah. And Chopper, or Ryan, Chopper, as he's known in the Delta Police Department, has been a good friend of our department for a long period of time. He has helped us through many significant investigations, and your undercover work has helped us put many people in jail. And we're so extremely thankful, and our community is thankful for all the work that you've done. And Chopper's story, not only being amazing around his police career, it's also amazing around the medical condition he's faced. And I have not only Ryan here with me, but I also have his wife, Estelise, with me here today. And Estelise is also an Abbotsford police officer. And you also came from Vancouver, I think, as well, didn't you?
That's right, yes.
Awesome. So we're going to have this opportunity to be able to talk a little bit about your career, a little bit about the wonderful things you've done to be able to help keep our community safe. And most people are fascinated with the work of an undercover officer. So that's a great story in itself. Yeah. But then we want to talk a little bit about a medical condition that happened in August of 2016, that's where correct. You suffered a seizure while you were on an operation. Yeah. And during that seizure, you had to get medical attention, and it led to the diagnosis of a brain tumor, a stage 4 cancer brain tumor that you've been suffering from for a period of time now. And the story that comes after August 26, 2016 is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I think that what you'll share with us today will be of value for many people for many years to come. So first of all, thank you for being here. So we're thrilled to be able to have you here, and I'm just so proud to be able to speak to you. So thank you. So tell us a little bit about your early career, Chopper.
Early career, I started, like we said, 2001 with the Vancouver Police Department. Prior to that, I started in corrections, federal corrections. I did about 3 years of that, and then went to the better side of that and got out of a jail and got into the VPD. And for me, it was always about policing for me. Ever since I was a young boy, there was nothing better for me than policing. All I ever wanted was policing. strived to have that, wanted to be there, didn't want anything other than that. So for me, when I got into policing, it was just so fantastic for me to be able to be a part of a team, work. For me, I started in the downtown east side and saw something coming from a guy from Campbell River, and working in the downtown east side. It was very surreal for me because I wasn't used to that. Like seeing these people just walking like zombies, some of them, and out in those streets, I was just like, I don't know where I am. So, but you also then transition at that point in time from feeling like that because you're such a small person in Campbell River. Now you're in the downtown east side in Vancouver, and then things switch too, because now you're working every day of your 4 on 4 off, and now you realize you're not dealing with these zombies anymore. It's not them walking around. These are the people that you are dealing with. So for me, I transitioned very quickly into a person who never was involved with drug investigations or anything. I started focusing with myself and my partner into the drug portion of the downtown east side and trying to help those people and always getting them to where they want to go. Hence remembering that you can try to get to people into certain areas, but people aren't going to want to do that unless they really want to do that. So whoever I worked with, we always tried to get those people to the positions they wanted to get to and help them in life. But there's always going to be the people that you want to help them, but you can't because it's their choice to make. So for me, to make a fast forward from that, I spent my first 5 years in the downtown east side and getting into surveillance areas. And then from there, I went to a drug unit in Vancouver Police. So I spent about 4.5 years in drugs there. And in that's where I kind of got into the UC work as well, doing that. But my kind of area of policing has always been patrol initially, and then drug work, undercover operations, and surveillance. So if people look back at me and go, in the 19 years, what were the things you did, Chopper? The biggest things for you, it was always those 3 things. Surveillance was a big fan of me. Like I love doing surveillance. Then the drug stuff was huge for me. And then I was lucky to get involved with the undercover operation stuff, and going from there and being able to work with Delta, New West, Nelson, all these municipalities, and going and having the ability to go to those places instead of being stuck as just a VPD guy or moving to Abbotsford, for example, and doing both of those. I was lucky to do both, but very lucky to get to meet people through all these departments. And that was huge for me.
Well, it's interesting. You've spent a great deal of your career avoiding any limelight, avoiding being, the cameras and the photography and the media, because you obviously, when you're an undercover operator, you don't want any part of that.
That's true.
And the last 3 or 4 years, you've really come now in front of that. And I know that you're very active in being in front of the camera and social media, and that's a huge transition. I just want to talk about one more project before we sort of move forward to 2016. I know that you were heavily involved in a project that we did here in Delta called Project Starboard.
Yes.
And it led to a great arrest. So do you want to talk about that?
Yes, it was. I can only speak on what I was involved in because I know Delta did such a great job with Starboard. Like, hats off to them. I listened to the start of that when it happened and was a part of that. But then, as people have to understand, there's so many people involved in Starboard. I was just a little portion of that. And luckily for me, my sergeant in the undercover operator portion of it asked if I would be involved in helping with Delta and that. And I said, I'd love to do it because I've had previous encounters with Delta, with undercover operations and stuff. So of course I wanted to be a part of Delta. And with that part for me, there was a lot of female undercover operators involved, and other people that were doing the grunt stuff. And I just lucked out and was asked if I can be kind of a higher level guy, where I was a mid-level drug dealer guy. And it was allowing Delta to get more information by utilizing me and then getting everything they needed for their evidence going forward in that. So for me, I was just a simple guy that went out and bought, I think it was strawberry cocaine at the time, which I had never heard of. And I called the people in Delta in drugs here, and I said, I've never heard of strawberry cocaine. And when I started researching it, it was back in the 70s in California with lawyers and more higher level people. And it was like a recreational drug. And so I had to do some research before I just came out and said to the bad guy and said, oh, I want to buy strawberry cocaine. Like, you kind of know what you're talking about before someone challenges you on that. And then luckily, just speaking to the two bad guys, I'm trying to figure out what I want to call them, but bad fellows, they met with me, and it was just a meet and greet thing that actually occurred between me and it was supposed to be the younger guy. I probably shouldn't say names, but we'll just call his first name's Adam. Everything's been dealt with anyway, so they're in prison and everything's been dealt with. But it was supposed to be me and this young kid just meeting in Richmond and asking about buying drugs. And so there was nothing to worry about, I thought, but he was challenging me and going after a lot of things that, I was asking, and he was trying to figure out if I was a cop really, right? So, but at the end all be all, it was supposed to be this young kid, but the main guy showed up on the very first day, and he wasn't supposed to be there. And so it was kind of worrisome for me at first, because I was like, I don't want to blow Delta's whole job and mess this up. And you're by yourself too. Like, you have people that are going to help you, like cover people and everything like that. But eventually it's no different than you and I. If we're going out together and it's just you and I got to figure out how to get through this, and you got to figure out how to get through me, and we got to do that. So in the end all be all, luckily, the main player guy, he did end up liking me, and we had a liking to each other. And then from there, the deal was done a few days later. And then I only did what Delta wanted me to do, and was to get the large amounts of cocaine, and being like $23,000 worth of it that I bought from these guys, and just went and did my job for the drug squad here. And I was just happy to be a part of it, and it worked out so well for them. And then after we did a few deals, they ended up bringing out Pebble heroin, which wasn't even supposed to be on the table. And they just started talking about it. And of course, as a good UC, you're not going to just say, oh, no, I'm only talking about strawberry cocaine. So I let them run with that. And I'm like, oh, you have pebbled heroin. And so we eventually, when it was the investigators' time for here in Delta, they were like, get the strawberry cocaine, but also buy the pebbled heroin. And we did that. And eventually, I didn't know what was happening till it happened at the end, but it was one of the largest fentanyl production. What do you call that?
Labs?
Lab, thank you.
Yeah, labs, yeah.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. And again, so Delta allowed me to participate and play with that, and which I was happy to be involved with. But in the end all be all, it's always what Delta did. That was their file, and they did a really good job with the whole thing. So,
well, the truth be known, everyone, that Chopper's being very humble here. Certainly, he was instrumental in this, and anyone who's interested in it, it's called Project Starboard. There is news releases on it, well over $1 million in cash, all kinds of firearms, heroin, cocaine, fentanyl, and at that point in time, it was the largest fentanyl bust in BC at that point in time.
Correct.
I'm not sure whether it's been, what its status is now, but you were instrumental in that, so you're being very humble.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
You certainly were, were great and able to befriend both of the suspects on that particular file. So thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm going to move us a little bit into 2016. So tell us about that day back on August 26, 2016. And for the listeners, so I have Chopper's wife here as well, and sometimes he looks for a word. That the cancer has impacted his brain now in a way that sometimes he looks for a word. So if you see us jump in and try to fill a sentence, Chopper's given us the sign that's help fill in the sentence. That's right.
Yeah.
And we're trying to work through this. So I'll let you go to August.
Sure. So August 26, I believe it was, correct? Yeah. 2016. Usually I would never even remember that day or date, but it's actually one of the biggest days or dates in my life, as I am right now, 45 years old.
And he looks 29. That's right.
I remember that day. I was actually working as a surveillance member with CFS-EU. For those people, I don't know if you want to...
Sure, and that's our gang unit. So typically in the lower mainland here in the Vancouver area, we have a coordinated gang unit with integrated teams. Yeah. And they do a ton of really great work in relation to
big
the
files.
gangs. Yeah, and organized crime.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was just like any other day for me. I guess I'll get to it in a second. The reason why, the one part of it was the best thing that could have happened for me was I was afoot that day in surveillance. So obviously for people in surveillance, and I'm not giving anything up, a driver and afoot, to me afoot, I just wasn't driving that day. That's all people need to really know. And we were supposed to end that day at 5 p.m. and we were asked by the investigators to stay till 7 or 7:30 that night. And we were all okay with it. Everyone on the team was ready to do that. And as we were putting the target into bed, let's just call it that night, we were being told that we were going to put them into bed and we were going to go home. And it was just around 7 o'clock, 7 p.m., 6:30, around there. I think 7. And I heard them call us to get up into other vehicles, and my partner wasn't even there at the time. He was at a set somewhere else in surveillance, but the road boss happened to be driving by and just saw me and said, "Jump in." I jumped in, and we were going to go to do a debrief, and we were going to leave to a different location to do that. But on the drive through the location, I remember this. It's funny because there's some stuff that I can't even remember with my brain from last week, but I remember this pure as anything. I was looking to the right, and my driver was looking to the left on Granville. And we went through Granville, and I cleared my side. The driver cleared his side, and we went to the next minor. And as I was clearing my side, all of a sudden, I just went out. And from what I don't remember anything, but what I do remember is what was told me by my driver. I've always been a joking type of guy. And at first, he thought I was farting in the car. But I actually wasn't. I had fallen over sideways because he couldn't see me. And I had a grand mal seizure. And I started frothing. So when I actually turned the other way and he saw me, then he was like, oh my God, what's happening? And then he called the proper people that you need to call through the surveillance channels and then dispatch and everything. And what ended up happening is I had a pretty bad seizure, obviously, and I started frothing out of the mouth, and I don't remember anything. And then what happened after that was about 10 or 15 minutes, quite a long period of time. I remember waking in an ambulance, and that's all I remember. And the first thing I said, there was two guys in the ambulance, one guy driving, and they said, you had a seizure. And I said, that's impossible. I've never had a seizure in my life. I said, we were T-boned. That's what I said. And I said to the guy, and he's like, no. And they're working on me doing stuff, and they're putting lines on me. And I'm like, no, I had, we were in an accident. We were T-boned. I just didn't see what happened. And we kept fighting, him and I. And but the crazy thing that started happening was there was only three things that were happening. I was very sweaty, and I felt vomiting all the time. Like I just wanted to vomit and vomit and vomit. And I kept saying to them, like, I'm going to be sick. I'm going to be sick. And the other problem was my brain was really starting to hurt. Like it felt like you had, what do you call that again?
Migraine?
Yeah, migraine. Like a migraine, because I've never had migraines my whole life, and I've been very lucky with not having like Advil or stuff like that. I've never really done any of that or used it. Just been lucky. And so after those three things, literally within 2 minutes, we arrived at VGH. And luckily we were close by. We weren't very far off. And then they took me into, what was the area called again? Sorry.
Emergency?
Yeah, but it's more the like trauma emergency. Like they were going
Critical care.
Yeah, the big
care,
area,
yeah.
whatever. Intensive care. And I remember when I was kind of waking up there and figuring out what was happening, I had no idea where I was. I know the doctor was looking at me at the kind of the front of where my feet were. And that's when I first saw Estelise and my son Ryder. They were kind of behind the doctor, and he was saying to me, do you remember the day this is? And I said, I have no idea. And I couldn't even make a guess. And then he said, do you know who the president is right now of the USA? And I was just looking, and of course, I cheated a bit, and I kind of looked past the doctor, and Estelise was kind of waving at me and trying not to make any noise, and she's kind of like, the black guy. And I'm like, oh, Obama. And then the doctor turned around and was like, you can't cheat. Like, okay, you can't ask your wife. And I'm like, okay, well, then I don't know. So I had no clue with anything. And then from there, to make it a lot faster and easier than just going on and off, that's when they started running me through CAT scans and MRI. And eventually, pretty much right away, it was a Friday, I believe. I think so. They wanted me, or it might have been Thursday night, and then it was Friday because I spent the night there. But they wanted me right away to do some surgery, or not surgery. Was that right? They wanted to do a brain surgery. Yeah. Right away, they obviously were seeing some signs of concern and something was happening. But the first thing they did tell us was I had a tumor that was being. They were seeing it in the scan in my head. So I didn't really know what was going on, but I do remember them saying, you have a tumor and we have to deal with this right away. But I still was kind of not believing that things were happening. I kind of had another Abbotsford member that had the very similar tumor in the brain, but it was benign. And that member met with me and told me what they had. And I kind of was like, I think it's going to be the same thing. Like, nothing's going to happen to me, because throughout my whole life at that point, I was still believing that I'm invincible. We're cops. We do this every day. And how is this going to happen to me? This isn't happening to me. And
you'd never been sick a day in your life sort of
never,
before that. So
never.
Literally like that.
Just like that. It was like the middle of nowhere, like just came out, and didn't even think that something like this would ever happen. So from there, they actually did send us back home for a few days, and then early September, so like a week or a week and a half later, they prepped us for the first brain tumor, the surgery, yes. And we went out there, and my whole squad was waiting at VGH when I got there that day. I didn't even know that they were going to be there, which helps a lot, especially for someone like me. You want to be as positive as you can be, no matter what you're doing or going through, and fighting for everything that you can, but you can't do everything. So you do get that. People, even today, people come by my house just to stop in and say hi, and those people won't ever understand how much it means to me. They'll never, ever get it, because unless you're dealing with it, how do you understand? So it was important for me. We did the brain surgery, and I just thought everything would be okay, and we'd work our way through that. And eventually, when my brain neurosurgeon, when he brought us a few weeks later after everything, and he said, we got to go through everything. And that was probably the worst day of everything that ever happened to us. I know it was just Estelise and I that day. We left our son. We had my parents looking after our son. And I just remember being there, and I was joking and I was laughing with the neurologist, doing what I always do, because why is it going to change anything different? It can't, to me. Like, I'm going to be who I am. Even if you punch me in the face today, I'm still going to laugh when I walk out of here, because it's not going to make anything better for me. So I sat there and listened, and I remember that day, because remember, I'm a police officer and I'm pretty stupid. So
aren't we all?
So when it comes to someone who's a doctor and a neurologist or a neurosurgeon, any of those people, they're smarter than me. So he told us that day that he said, you have glioblastoma from what you had that during the surgery. And the first thing that came to me was, I have no idea what glioblastoma is, because probably there's ignorance in me, and maybe other people too, because you've never had to go through that. And there's probably people that have gone through 55 other types of cancer that I've never gone through, because I was ignorant to think of what they had. So when he told me, and he said glioblastoma, I looked at Estelies and I said, I have no idea what glioblastoma is. And so I looked at the doctor and I said, can you please tell me what glioblastoma is? And he goes, because I remember this to this day. And he said, do you know Gord Downey? And I said, well, I do know Gord Downey, and I'm not going to be ignorant and tell you that he's my biggest fan. Growing up as a young child, I never was a tragically hip person. I was into different types of music, but this was a big day for me. This was where this guy told me, because he knows I like music, and he said, you have what Gord Downey has. And I said, the first thing I said to him is, well, isn't he dying? And he looked at me and he just said, kind of put his hands up and down, or his face up and down, nodding. And to me, I said, the first thing I said to him that day, I said, well, he's dying, but I'm a cop and I work with cops, just like everyone in here. They're all police officers. What we're going to do is we're going to figure out how to destroy this. And do you know what he said to me? Because it'll always be something that I keep to me. He said, this is a fight you're not going to win. And I kind of backed up and I was like, hold on a second. We've fought everything we've done since 2001 when I started policing to 2019 now. We're always going to fight. We're police. If you go out and you go to domestic and somebody starts to attack you, you just call for other police officers and then we win. We're always going to win. But he was trying to tell me that this is something you're not going to win. So I had a really hard time. So, and I know it was hard for Estelies too when that word came out that day, sitting in this room when it happened. And now, to boot, you got to remember now I can't drive. So I could have gotten to my truck with Estelies and, drove us back home and at least, do something, feel like I've done something. But now I'm sitting in the side of a vehicle while she's driving me home and everyone's waiting for this result, but no one knows what's going to happen. And crazy things start to go through your head. And when that happened, a lot of weird things went through my mind. I did a lot of that stuff on my own, and I still will keep some of my stuff to myself. I don't want my son to ever see that stuff. I want him to believe that I'm the best thing that can ever be for him. So if something ever happens, I'll walk away from him and go somewhere alone. I don't want him to see that and believe that's happening to his dad. And so we got home, and I remember when I walked up the stairs and my parents were there, and Ryder was, I think, playing Lego or something, but I remember just being angry, not to anybody, just to myself, and walking up. We have to walk up the stairs to get to the kitchen area and in the living area, and my mom and dad were standing there waiting when I came through, and I just said, I'm fucking done. And that's all I said. And I don't know why I said that. I don't know if that was wrong of me to say it. But my mom was, what's going on? What happened? And I said, we're fucking done. And that was it. And she's like, and then I just went to my room and I sat alone for a bit and did my own thing. And it's a very hard concept to deal with, because I still get people today that they will know someone or a family member, and someone had breast cancer, and I understand all that. I fully understand that, especially a person like me or Esley's that we've been through for the last 3 years. But the problem is, and I'm not trying to minimize breast cancer, and I don't want to minimize anything, but I also am a realism kind of person, and everything's real to me. And back in the 80s and the early 90s, we had a huge problem with breast cancer. But the thing with breast cancer is it's changed so drastically to 2019 that there's a lot of people nowadays that can survive breast cancer. And I really like those people because I know that they're going to survive. But the problem with glioblastoma that I try to explain to people, because they'll tell me, oh, go to Mexico, do this, do that. It doesn't work that way, because if I could survive glioblastoma, which I can't, if I can survive 5 years, if I can survive 10 years, if I can survive 15 years, I'd love it. But there's also anyone who has a glioblastoma is told you have 2 years to live. And then after that, it's going downhill pretty fast. So with glioblastoma, what I was trying to say at the end there was just that I can't survive what I have. You're given right away stage 4 glioblastoma, brain cancer. You're done. Like, you can't start at stage 1, 2, 3. It's 4 and it's terminal, and it can happen fast. I've met a whole bunch of actual people that have glioblastoma, and I've had police officers asked to meet with me, and they've found someone that's a friend of theirs or somebody that they know in the world that they, parents, friends or something, and they have glioblastoma. Would you talk to them about that? I said, 100%. Even if they don't know me, I'll talk to anybody. But I'll tell you one thing right now. I've had 3 people that I've gone through this with in the last 3 years, and they're all dead. And it's unfortunate, and I feel very bad for them. But there's also that thing that I have to keep going forward for what I'm doing. And it's for me, and it's selfish. I get it. It's for me. It's for my wife. It's for my son. Those are the 3 big things right now. I appreciate every single thing that it's given me every day. And it's changed a lot since I was started as a police officer. I didn't ever think of things like this could happen to you. But in the last 3 years, since you talked about August 2016, it feels to me that it's been 3 days. That's it. Like, I'm trying to keep going to 10 years, to 11 years. I want to see things with my son. I want to see him go to high school. I want to see him do things like that. So I don't have, there's days when I don't have good days, and I will mask that and hide that. There's days I wish I could not hide that, because I think sometimes I'm too much pride, and I don't want people to see me in certain aspects. But it's everything that I go through is just reality. It's reality. If I sit here and say to you right now, well, you know what? I'm going to get through this glioblastoma and I'm going to live. I want that to happen. But Esley's and I have talked about this for the last 3 years about there's always days I have to tell her about realism. Like, there might be a day I'm gone. Like, remember that. Like, we have to remember those things, because I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep going, but it's tough.
Well, I look across from you right now, and you look healthy. You've got this great hair, right? You look like you're fit, and you look like you could go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I wish I could.
That's how healthy you look, and yet inside your brain, right, you've got all this going on.
Yeah.
What have you done to be able to sort of manage that? I know you've done some amazing stuff, and I want to sort of get to that, and I want to talk a little bit about some of the things you've done, because I think it's exceptional.
So with me, I kind of went back to the same approach when I got into policing. Same thing as when I went in, before I was in policing. Let's just even go back to federal corrections. There's always a plan in the way that I look at work. If I was to work in a prison, I'm not going to go into the jail and I have to sit inside wherever I'm working with the inmates, and not think of the plan. So I always have a plan of what I want to do. If this jail's going to go up tonight and everyone's going to attack everybody, well, I want to have a plan. So I always have a plan. And it's no different in policing, I would imagine, with a lot of people. If I'm getting in my police vehicle today and I'm going out, just, taking a call from dispatch, and it's a simple call, you always want to think of the worst thing that's going to happen that day, even if it's going to be the smallest thing that's going to happen. That's the way I always interpret policing, because the problem is if you just assume something's going to be fine that day, that's going to be the day when you're attacked or someone tries to kill you. And we can even talk to Estely's about that. Like the day that happened to her in Vancouver when she shot and killed the fella, she didn't expect that to happen that day, and nobody would expect that to happen. So for me, to answer your question, is to always use your brain to think of what you're going to do to get to the best ability that you need to be. Because I'm not the biggest guy too. There's lots of guys that are bigger. Like, look at Aaron. He's got his pipes hanging out right now.
Mr. Plant-based, right? That's right, exactly.
So, there's always someone that's bigger and better than you, no matter what and no matter where you are. So you always want to take advantage of what you have in front of you. The other thing is just, for me, was working out. Like, it's crazy when I think back to that August 26th, right? August 26th, the week prior to that, I had done Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That week prior, every day I had done trails. I'd running trails. And I ran into areas where I shouldn't be alone, but I did it on my own. Not that it was dangerous. It was, what I mean is that now that I think back, if I had that grand mal seizure inside one of these places where I was on a trail, probably wouldn't found me for a long time. So, because I also didn't tell people where I was going for my workout, and just minor things, but we see that all the time in the news with, search and rescue, the people that go to Cyprus and they do that and they don't tell people where they're going. I understand that, but it'd be no different than me walking in my neighborhood. Like, I'm not going to tell every time I go for my neighbor where I'm going for a walk. So with that, it was just, I was lucky when I had my grand mal that I didn't fall down. Where I ended up prior to me having my seizure, I had just moved out of where I was sitting. What do you call it? Stairs. And some stairs. I would have fell down into these stairs. Luckily, I didn't fall on that. Then I didn't fall the week prior, so they allowed me to have my seizure the next week. They had my seizure when I was a foot, not a driver. So the best thing that could have happened that day too was I wasn't the driver, and then my other guy was a foot, and then I had a seizure and drove into a whole bunch of people and hurt them. So there's a lot of things if you look at that. And then for me currently right now is just working out. it's the most important thing for me.
You've done some other amazing things, though. Tell me a little bit about you're an artist.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I wouldn't even think of it because I didn't, it was something I always wanted to do. And I have a lot of tattoos myself. And one of my, a guy that started, I got some tattoos from him. I'll plug him out a bit here, Mark Roy. He's probably the most amazing tattoo artist that I've ever met in my life. Always getting better. So he's not a regular tattoo person that once you tattoo, you just tattoo and keep doing that. Mark's always adapted and changed his portfolio and his ability to tattoo, which has made him better than anybody for realism. He's a realism tattoo artist, and he's really good. So prior to even what happened with me, I had plans of being a tattoo artist when I, what do you call that after 25 years? Retired. So after I retired, I wanted to be a tattoo artist. And Mark was going to help me do that, which I thought was amazing because most people won't help you do something like that. It's very hard to get into that and have someone that can help you. So I wanted to do that. And then eventually, as I was getting into that, I had a plan that I would do my 25 years, retire, and then start doing tattooing for police officers and law enforcement. And then all of a sudden cancer happened, and that happened. But in the meantime, what happened with cancer is it allowed me, instead of sitting upstairs on my couch and feeling sorry for myself, and remember, it is brain cancer, I needed to do something that would stimulate my brains and help me. So Mark helped me and got me to the area where I needed to be and start trying to do that. And it wasn't the best for me. Like, I don't like some of the first tattoos I've ever done. Nestle's has a couple on her. That I try to keep those ones hidden for her. And then if you look at like the legs on the bottom of her, the tattoos I've done later on, they're better, and I like those. But like anything, you have to get better at what you're going to do. Like, you can't just be a tattoo artist and be awesome. You have to start and get your craft to be better at what you're doing. And, you know, I'm just lucky that I've had someone like Mark that allowed me to do that. And I make no bones about it. He's a fantastic tattoo artist. I'm nothing compared to what he is. I'm just happy to be part of it and be involved. And the best thing that ever came from that was, to be honest, a lot of people don't know the answer. I'll give you the answer. This is the first time probably that someone's ever had the true answer, is because the only people that I tattoo are police officers or law enforcement people that I know. I don't want anybody I don't know. And I've done 240 tattoos now in a short period of time. And they're mostly police people. And the best part of it is sometimes not just me tattooing them, is them being there with me, and we're alone now and we can just bullshit. If it takes 2 hours to do the tattoo, we can talk. If it takes, you know, I've had a few people that I've done some pretty big pieces on them, which takes like 4 sessions or 5 sessions. So to be able to do that is just the best for me, because I've, in the last 3.5 years of not being able to be a police officer, I lost a lot of remembering what I am and who I am, because that's the hardest thing in life. When I talked to you earlier this morning and I said all I ever wanted to be is a cop, and I've lost it now because this cancer's taken it away from me. I should be out on the road. I should be doing what I want. Unfortunately, I can't drive. I can't shoot. I can't do anything. And there's days that are terrible that I wouldn't want to be working anyways because it just doesn't feel well.
What's unique about being a tattoo artist, though, as well, in your art, is that you will leave a piece of you behind with everyone. So they will remember Chopper.
Yeah, that's exactly, I'm glad you said that, because there's a lot of people that I've met in policing, and I will have that ability if something ever happens, that there are people that can live on and have a tattoo that I got to do. And that's huge to me, because the biggest thing that ever happened to me when all this happened, and you'll see crazy things, I've tried to do a rap studio in my apartment.
Let's hear some rap.
Yeah, we'll do that next. I've tried to do a rap studio. Unfortunately, I'm terrible at trying to create all the electronic stuff. I've got a whole bunch of songs that I've written, but I just want to get them into these rap studios or that type of idea. I've done some small podcast stuff with Ryder. I've had him do a podcast with me, and I'll tell Ryder, ask me questions, and he'll be like, "Do you like tigers?" And I'm like, sure. But it's genuine, right? Oh, of course. Who doesn't like tigers? So I wanted to make what do you call that again?
Guitar?
Yeah, I wanted to try doing a guitar and stuff like that, because I think what's happening with my brain is because everything has an ability to go from here to gone in a heartbeat, that I'm trying to do all these things that if something happened and it's gone, I want to be that guy that people can remember me and go, that Chopper guy, I want them to say he was an idiot. And I want them to say the reason he was an idiot, because we remember him police-wise doing undercover stuff, surveillance, drug stuff. But I also want them to remember all the tattoo stuff, any podcast that I do with Ryder at home. If I could do some rap songs, I would love that, because do you know why? Because I'm the type of guy, if I rap a song and it sounds terrible, I don't care. Because when I go away and that's left in there and Ryder can look at that, I want him when he's 16 to go, if something happened to my dad, and go, my dad was cool. My dad was a cop. He tattooed people. He was a stupid rapper. He thought he was a rapper. I want that. I want all that stuff, because if I don't do that now, I'll never have that in the future. So anything I can do like that, it's selfish for me, but it's what I want. I don't know. I think it's the hardest thing I try to struggle with right now is just that word legacy. What are you going to have when it's gone? Because I didn't think it would be gone. I think I'd be here 90 years old from now, and with everybody else, and and I'm saying it still can be. I'm not saying it can't be, but I just want to do as much that I can do, that if something did happen, people will remember me. Because my fear in life is, we're all gonna, there might be that day when all of us are there at that funeral home and I'm gone, but I've never been big on that. I'd rather have 20,000 people at a funeral home and we all have fun and think about me. I'd rather have that. But what I definitely don't want is 10 years from now someone to forget about me. So that's the biggest thing.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Now, sort of before I start wrapping up here, Estelise, I do want to speak to you just shortly, because you're also a police officer, and you have also been involved in critical incidents. And man, who would think this family would have such challenges, right? Because, I'm thinking back to the time that you were involved in a critical incident and unfortunately had to use lethal force to be able to protect yourself and protect the community. So how have you been able to manage this along the route?
I think the biggest thing for me has always been I've never been a super career person or a sports person or anything like that. Family has been the most important thing to me. And so at that time, it was only Ryan and I and our little family when the incident occurred. And it was a lethal shot that day, but I was left with no choice. So I've never had an issue with what I've had to do. Not gonna lie, it's a heck of a thing taking somebody's life. When you're a normal person, there are days where it seems a little bit surreal, like I had to take somebody's life. And I find myself floating a little, if that makes sense. And then I come right back down because I realized the day I wanted to live my life spent the rest of my life with Ryan.
I'm sorry.
Today. I got to take,
married to an undercover operator. I can only imagine what that is like.
Yes.
That's right. He's on time all the time, right? No, I'll be home at 7. Okay, 7 the next morning.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah. Our life has kind of been a crazy life, but I really wouldn't have it any other way. I think that's kind of, how we've always lived. And I think just having Ryan and Ryder, I call them my boys for many reasons, is really all I needed and to make me happy. And so this particular incident, it's been helpful seeing. I talked to Dr. Randy Makoff from time to time. And I would highly recommend that. I know there's the stigma on mental health and all that is very real. I think it's great how we're sort of coming out of that trend to get people the help they need, because you can live. It doesn't have to be a disability, with the right help, and you can move on forward.
You grow from it.
Absolutely.
Right? Yes.
It definitely does. It changes you, but for the better if you choose that and if you get the right help, and it's out there. And I would say to anybody, don't let anything like that hold you back from anything you wanted in life and, are striving for. So I would say managing the situation prior to cancer was the big thing for me, was the love Ryan has always shown me and the support. I remember when the incident occurred, I just wanted to see him. That's all I wanted. And, obviously seeing a professional talking about it, getting some pointers and then moving on. I have, since 2016, not thought about it too much. Everything has taken a background to this, and now I feel like the most important job I've ever been given is to fight with Ryan. And that's my whole life. And I'll never give up either. In the fight, we're in the trenches now. And we're facing a demon. I realize glioblastoma is a heck of a cancer. And, but I've always believed in Ryan's strength. We're here 3 years later when he was given 2. And I have hope, for this study we found. yeah, there's a lot of little mountains we have to climb to get there, but we'll get there. And I have to always believe that, you know, there was a day when we were all three of us, me, Ryan, and Ryder, were in the garage, and I remember Ryder pointed to Ryan's dirt bike. It's a nice dirt bike. It's a fast dirt bike. And I'm not always happy that he has it, but Ryan pointed to it and said, "Dad, can you teach me to ride that one day?" And I remember Ryan left the garage because I know what he was thinking. You know, I hope I'm there to teach you to do that. And I will never give up believing that he can be there one day. So there's a lot going on, and managing, you know, the past, you know, the incident I was involved in. And now I feel that that's so little compared to this battle, seeing that Ryan is the best thing I ever found. Just the thing that's honestly carried me through first and foremost is Ryan's support and love. Obviously, our little guy, you know, if anything, and I know it's Ryan's biggest motivation for doing what he's doing and moving forward is Ryder. And then the support and the love we've gotten, and the greatest part of that has been our family in blue. I am humbled every day by the support we receive. And I remember the first thing I always remember every day is I think about how must Ryan feel today. I always put myself in his shoes for that day. And the second thing I think about is I get another text or a call or a drop by somebody. And I always remember that nobody owes us a single thing. Yet people are so willing to help and give and check in. And giving doesn't necessarily have, you know, hasn't always been money. Not that, but time and effort. And I am so grateful for that. I truly believe that if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be here today. I think I would feel very alone in my little struggles, which some of them I've put in a box for now, seeing that, you know, we are in the trenches and the bullets are flying, and, you know, there's no time to necessarily deal with everything healthfully. But healthfully putting those in boxes and looking forward, and I feel like I have a whole army next to us fighting with us, and it's like Ryan said, you know, when somebody spends a little bit of time with him, they will never know how much that means to him. I 100% agree with them. People show us support. A visit with Ryan, contributing to what we're trying to do, asking if we need anything, any help, they will never know how much that means to us. So I'm managing with all the love and support is the thing that's helped me through, you know, the PTSD and all that I've been dealing with. It's just washed over all of that, and I feel like I have everything I need to do what needs to be done next.
Well, I could literally talk to you for hours. We could get into some of your operations. I'd love to be able to have a few laughs with those, because I'm sure there's some stories you can tell. And I know from all of your friends who have spoken to me that you tell some amazing stories. So, yeah, and certainly, although this has been one of the most difficult podcasts I think I've done, it's been tremendously rewarding.
Good.
I understand you've had an interaction with Keith Logan from the BC Municipal Undercover Operations, that unit, the shop they call it. And there's a story there that I want to grab from you that I think is so valuable. So maybe I'll let you go from there.
Sure. So it made a huge impact with me. And what happened when I went through the JI in 2001, Keith Logan was an instructor there, and that's how I met him. And the things that happen in life may just be minor things that happen for certain people, but for other people, they impact things. And so what happened with him was later on in about 2009 or 2008, that's when I got into the level 2 aspect of undercover operations. And I had known everything that he had done, and he was a part of the BCMUP back in that day, and that's where I wanted to go in my life. And I got to be a part of that, and got into level 2 operations, and then went on to be a successful level 2 undercover operator. So then what happened was, I want to say it would be 2000. I know Ryan's going to kill me, but my brain's so bad. So Ryan Logan is Keith's son. So Keith passed away with cancer. And it was 2000, I want to say 2008, 9, or 10, in that area. And it was important for me to go to the, what's it called? The name I'm trying to say? For the funeral?
Ceremony.
The funeral. Yeah. So it was important for me to go to Keith's funeral because not only A, was he one of my instructors, which I thought was very important, but he paved this way for younger people like me that were now getting into undercover operations. And to me, I'm one of those guys that you always gotta, pay reference to people that started something. And it's not like I started the undercover operation. Like, these people paved the way for me. So I felt I had a hard time going to the funeral for Keith. And I never, when I walked away that day, I never spoke to Keith's wife, and I never spoke to Keith's children. And then as I left that and things moved on, and obviously what happened to me with cancer, I was teaching at the JIBC. So now I'm thinking I'm kind of like back where Keith was. He's teaching, I'm teaching. And I just happened to go this day to teach the recruits, because I sometimes will teach the recruits when they're there for their drug days, whatever you call that. They do about 1 or 2 days of drug investigation. Thanks. So I've been doing that with the JIBC and helping them out with that. And the one day I was there, one of the sergeants said, Keith Logan's son is in the class. And Ryan is his name. And he didn't know that he would even know who I was, because he shouldn't know. But it meant a lot to me. So what happened, as I had to teach this lecture for the whole day, and he ended up being sitting right in front of where I would talk the whole day. And I couldn't stop but just thinking of him and thinking of Keith. But trying to be, to do my job like you would as any person that does a job, I needed to do the job at hand, and that was to do this lecture for all these recruits. And then finally, at about 3:00 in the afternoon, it was time for them to go. And he was going to walk past, and he shouldn't know any different. But for me, I reached out and I grabbed his hand and I asked if he would be okay with me talking to him. And he said, yeah, it's no problem. But he at first didn't know who am I? Like, who's this weird guy with a, beard and crazy hair and stuff? And so, but I also wanted the people to get out of the room so I could talk to him one-on-one. And it was not about anybody else. It was just about me, and I needed some information from him, and I couldn't do anything other than getting this information. So we kind of stood there for a second, and I asked him, I said, my name's Ryan, and obviously you know who I am from the recruit or from the class we just did. I know your dad. I just wanted to, get to it right away, and said, your dad was one of my instructors at the JI. And he said, oh, I hear that from people. And I said, yeah, but it's important for me. He was one of my instructors, and he really paved the way into undercover work for me. And it's important for me, and I need to kind of explain that to you. And he heard, before I kind of talked about the drug stuff in that morning, I said, I have cancer, and kind of went over my story for them. So he knew what was going on. And then I eventually said to him, I said, can you tell me some stuff that you remember when your dad passed away that'll help me, because I have a 7-year-old son. And he had no issues talking, which was good and fantastic. But what happened is he was explaining to me about, taking lots of pictures if something happens. Because I was in that stage still. It was really early in my cancer, and I was having a hard time of, am I going to die? What's happening to me? So I wanted to ask Ryan Logan, I said, how's it going to be better for me with my son? And he said, well, take lots of pictures, because you need to have a lot of pictures with your dad, like with my dad, he was explaining. And I said, well, I understand that, because it was, remember, back in a while back with his father passing away, and he didn't have the technology we have now. And I said, I've been doing a lot of Instagram pictures with my son, and the reason I take those pictures on Instagram is so if something happens, my son sees that. But it was very interesting that it caught me off guard. Is he put his head down in front of me, and like most men are, and the way they feel, I have a hard time just as much as probably he did, as he looked down, and he started crying, and I had a hard time with it. It really made me sad too. And he says, I miss my dad's voice. So it really hit home for me with him, and this person that I don't really know him, but I knew his dad, and he was willing to talk to me about something so special with him and his dad that he allowed me to talk about that. It was really something awesome, and it made me realize that everything that I want to say, again, the podcast thing, I just want it to always be there for my son, because it was huge for me, because it actually is very important, because once you don't have those voices your dad has, you can't get back to have that. So it was a very emotional thing for me. We ended up talking for about an hour and 15 minutes that day. And then I've actually tattooed him as well, which I was happy to do because I really wanted to do something like that with him, having that connection with his father. It just meant a lot to me. So I don't know if I missed anything other than that. Aaron is good. It was just a very important thing. And I know there's things that I'll forget to talk about and stuff. And I'd love, to talk to you for hours and days and stuff. And I could find stuff. I'll go home and think of something else I think would be important that could help someone listening to my cause or our cause, Esteli's and everyone. But I think the biggest thing Esteli's nailed it was just every single person that's been around us since 2016 has been amazing. And just even the smallest little thing is more important to me than anything else. Just even someone that texts me and says, "Hey, how you doing today?" That's more important than someone saying, "Hey, do you want to go have lunch?" And then it doesn't happen, because usually in our worlds where everything's so busy, that's what happens, because busyness can tear apart stuff like that. But I don't expect that. What is the best thing that I've ever learned is just people texting and saying hi, even hi, because it's not fake. It's just, "Hey, how you doing today?" "Great, cool," and then move on. That to me is the best thing. And I have that with so many people. I have even special little ones like that, that I won't talk to people about, like even Mike Sear, like Chief Mike Sear. Like, I'm not going to talk about that because there's a special thing between him and I that we have, and it has to do with something with him. But people won't understand that. So I'll always have that. And those things are important because I just can't explain how it is. And then I know I do want to say it at the end too, is just that I thank everybody for everything they've done for me and for Esteli's, and they'll never understand. I can't even, talk about how I can make that better. It's difficult.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for both of you being here. And I do want to just sort of cover some things I think that are so important that you've said as well. And the first thing that's come out loud and clear is about love, is about social support, and about being able to not only have family support, but the support of friends and family and everything that involves that whole social support. We're in this community, this police community, and, it really is our second family, isn't it? Yeah. The second thing I think that was important is that, you found a passion of yours. You found your art, your tattooing, and as a result, you were able to leave a piece, with everyone of Chopper and of what you're building and what you stand for. Another thing I heard you mention that was significant as well is hope, right? There's always hope, and the fight always goes on, right? And recognizing that prognosis is awful, right? But there's always the hope, and that hope makes you drive forward every day. Absolutely. And I think that the last thing I want to mention that I think that you've also said is that it really is every day, right, is that game of inches. You wake up that day and you're going to deal with that day. Yeah. And if you can't focus too far ahead, right, because you don't know what that future may look like, but you focus on today, and today will be the best. And certainly those are lessons for all of us to be able to take away.
Chopper and Celise, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
The only thing I don't want to add any insight. I think everything's been amazing. You coming here and telling us your story, as you as Celise as well. I just had one kind of little quib, kind of funny note that I was listening to you tell your stories is about the tattooing and Esteliz being your canvas to learn on. And if you're sitting across from Esteliz, she's a smaller lady, and I'm thinking, man, you had to get good quick because you didn't have a big canvas to work.
That's right.
That's it. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, no, it's just small. Yeah.
Well, let me conclude here by saying, that, number one, you're beautiful people, right? So
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the honor of being able to hear your story.
No, thank you for letting us come. It's awesome.
And for what it's worth, it seems very insignificant after hearing your story, but I do have what we call a commitment coin from the Delta Police Department, and just in relation to your commitment to sharing your story, and hopefully people can learn from it and feel better for it. So, we'll give that to you, and thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you.
I would encourage all the listeners to be able to go on to our website and be able to take a look at the pictures of Chopper and Esteliz as well, and you get a good idea what an undercover operator looks like.
There you go.
That's right. He's a true undercover operator, and great police officers as well. So thank you for this gift you've given us, and I hope all is well into the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
These productions never come without a lot of work from everyone involved. A big shout out and thank you to Constable Aaron Hill, Melissa Granum, and Nikki Hewitt for producing and recording, and of course post-production done by Podfly. Chopper and his wife Esteliz are two of the strongest people I have ever met. Normally we put out a podcast about once per month, but recognizing Chopper's condition and the fact that he has a GoFundMe page to raise $200,000 to get him to Arizona for a new treatment, we've pushed this podcast out sooner. The next guest we'll have on our Bend Don't Break show will have to be a surprise, because you know what? We just haven't recorded it yet. If you want to support Chopper in the fight for his life, go to his GoFundMe page. Here's the address for it: GoFundMe.com/F/fight-Chopper. So let me say that again: GoFundMe.com/F/fight-Chopper. Thanks for listening to Bend Don't Break.
For more episodes, you can find us on iTunes and Google Play. If you have a story to tell, go to deltapolice.ca/podcast to submit your idea. Don't forget to subscribe to and rate our podcast. And if you want to connect, we're on all major social media platforms. Once again, thanks for tuning in.